Hello everyone, welcome to Community Force webinar. My name is Mehreen Mirza and I am going to facilitate this webinar and will be answering questions that you may have during the Q&A break. We see that most of you have joined, but we are still awaiting some more attendees to join us. So while we wait for everyone else to join, let us show you how you can use this webinar to ask questions and access the handouts. As you can see, there is a panel on the right-hand side of your screen with an arrow. Please use the arrow that is represented in an orange box to collapse or open this panel. You can use the question area to type your question and click on send or enter. We will receive your questions and answer them by either typing them in or verbally during the Q&A break. Now, if we miss answering any of your questions, we will send you the response via email after this webinar. Also, a copy of today's presentation is available in the handout section. Please click on the PDF copy by clicking on the title of the handout as shown here. This handout contains individual help guides, knowledge-based articles for each of the topics that we are covering today. All of you also have been put on mute in order to avoid any confusion during the presentation. Let us see. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, let's see that, since most of us have joined the webinar, let's have a look at the topic for today. The topic for today is Site Administration, Part 1 of the Part 3 series. Okay, so today is Part 1, Managing Site Settings. We have with us our amazing Christine Smith. She will be our trainer for today, and she will go over all of the relevant areas under this topic. The duration of this webinar is 1 hour. I will now pass over the mic to Christine to start this training. All yours, Christine. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
And thank you, Maureen, for that fine introduction. So we have a lot to get covered today, so let's go ahead and get started with our introduction, of course. So this webinar that we're going to be having today, like Maureen mentioned, is a series of about 3 different parts for site administration. So we're going to be covering today the part 1, where we're going to talk about the administration tab, manage site settings. And so that way you can get a better understanding of those settings and how they function. And so in today's session, we're going to answer some of the questions. Some of the common questions we get are, how do I change my organization's titles and logos? How do I change the theme, the color scheme on my site? What about, how do I get an email every time an applicant submits their application? Instructional messages on login page. Maybe I want to create some of those. Where do I do that? Registration instructions. How do I change those? I have terms and conditions for people to use my site. So how can I create something like that and add it to my site in the registration process? So those are some of the key questions that you'll be able to get the answers to today. And so, of course, who's going to benefit from today's session? So this is mainly for the global administrators, because they're the ones that have access to the site maintenance. And so normally it's the global admins, not the department or the reporting admins that have access to this. So of course, this will be mainly, these next few sessions will be for global admins that will be able to benefit from this session. So this is the topics that we're going to be covering. All of these topics are going to be in the site settings, the administration site settings. So there's different tabs within the site settings. So we have the organization settings, the general settings, referral settings, reviewer screen settings, grants and fellowship settings. So that's for, don't get confused when you see grants and fellowships, that's also for the scholarships fund settings. That's also what those are for. And then external, if you have integration with a third-party site, so you're integrating with Community Force. So we'll talk about where those settings are so that your tech team knows if they need to make any adjustments to a key or a password, how to access those. Manage award settings, instruction settings, and then finally advertising and marketing settings. We'll go over those as well. So like Maureen said, in between, we're going to take a quick 5 to 10 minute break, answer any questions that you may have typed into your question box, and then we'll proceed. And at the end, we'll answer any final questions that you may have. So of course, the first topic we want to get started on is the organization-based setting. So what are organization settings? So these are going to just be the key settings in regards to your organization name, your domain name, the site behavior, what type of site you have. All of those are going to be organization-based. So if you need to maybe upload a new logo, that sort of thing, this is where those are going to be located. Now, when we first present the site to you, when you first go live with Community Force and you get your site from Community Force, then of course these are preset usually when you get the site, but if you need to make any adjustments to them, this will show you how to get to those. So let's go ahead and go to the site so you can see the administration settings that are out there. So I'm logged in as an admin, of course, and I'm going to go to the administration tab here. And then once I'm under the administration tab, I'm going to make sure I open up this menu. And I'm going to go down here to site settings. Now with site settings, when you meet with Community Force, when you first go on board with us and you meet with us and you meet with our implementation team, we do ask a lot of questions. And when you get these site settings, when you get your site, a lot of them will be set up for you based on that process review or that discussion you've had with Community Force when you first went on board. So a lot of this is already preset for you. So of course, the first section we want to cover here is organization-based settings. So I'm going to open up this tab here where it says organization. And once I open it up here, you'll see the key settings for your organization. So this is the name, of course, the name of your organization. This is the application name. So when we talk about application name, you're going to notice this says demo portal. So you're going to notice here, if I go down here, there's my name and here's my demo portal. That's what that's looking at. What type of site, what's the name of this site? So a lot of times you'll have a specific name here. And if you're seeing that and you're wondering, how do I change that? That's located right up here. And then the organization code, that is mainly used with integration, but everyone does have an organization code. You can see it's got a red star there, so that means it's a required field. Anything that's got a red asterisk is a required field. So what this is this identifies as just a small little abbreviated identifier code that identifies your organization. Especially with integration, you can make a determination of who's coming in that's non-organization related. They're coming in directly to the Community Force site, or ones that are logging in from your site coming in will be tagged with that organization code, of course. Now also, I have here the logo. So this is where you would upload your logo. If you switch out a logo, you get a new logo and you want to change it, this is where you would do that. You would upload it. Organization domain, of course, that is the name of the domain that your information's coming from. Again, that's integration. That's your domain. That's your extension on your web page. So that you can see mine is @cf.com. Now, site behavior here, this is an important, extremely, I'm not going to stress this enough, this is extremely important setting that you do not want to change. This is the setting that makes you a grant site or a scholarship site. So individual, of course, is going to be anything where an applicant is an individual person coming in to apply to your site. And so the organization is when you have organizations coming into your site. So organization means you have a grant site. If it says individual, it means you have a scholarship site for accepting applications from individuals. So if you were to change this, that changes the functionality of your site and will not allow you to do scholarships, and vice versa. If you change organizations to individuals, you will not be able to accept grants from organizations. So once this is set, do not change it, because it will change the entire site and will affect anything that's already on your site. So you can't just say, oh, you know what, I don't want to do scholarships anymore, I'm going to change it to a grant site. You cannot do that. That will affect all the past history on your site. You would need to get a whole new site in order to do scholarships or grants, okay? So then that is the organization settings, very simple. You can see what those are. So the next thing we're going to talk about then is the general settings. And again, general settings are all the general settings that we've discussed with you in your onboarding. And so those are a lot of the key settings depending on your processes, how you do certain functionality. We've set those according to the needs of your organization. So if we go back down here, and this is where we're going to spend the majority of our time today because there are so many. So I'm going to click here. I'm still in site settings. And like I said, today we're going to be in site settings all session long today. That's all we're going to cover. And so here under general settings, I'm going to open that up. And now you'll see all of these general settings are settings that are pertaining to your specific processes, what's turned on, what's turned off, what needs to be activated, what functionalities are you going to be using in the system. A lot of these toggles affect certain functionality, turning it off and on. So we're going to start here at the top, the title. So this title here is the title that is in your web browsers. On the tab here, this top tab here, you're going to see my title. So if you're wondering how do I change that title bar so that any individual that types in this URL accesses the URL, they have a better meaning title here in their browser tabs. That is what this title is. The scholarship signature. So the scholarship signature, what it is there is a merge field in your email templates, and it's called signature. So there's two places when you use that template and you put a merge field or any place where you have that merge field signature in your email. The first place it's going to look for is, it's not going to look here. It's actually going to go up into your applications, and bear with me here. If we switch here, what's going to happen? I'm not sure if it's going to, I've got two browsers open on different screens, and so it's taking a little bit of here. Okay, here we go. So the first place it looks is you have an application, of course. You build your application. The fund that's directly tied to it. So if it's a one-to-many, it's going to be your posting fund. If it's a one-to-one process, it's going to be the fund that's the funding source for that single application that you're applying. So if I was to click on this funding opportunity and then go to the edit screen, the first place that merge field looks is this signature right here. This allows for a larger, lengthier, more detailed signature line that's tied directly, it's the applications fund that's tied directly to it, that signature. If this is blank, if the email goes, looks for the merge field, sees this is blank, then of course it's going to go to the administration. And then in the administration site setting, it's going to go and look at this signature. So if it doesn't see anything in the fund, it's going to go here and it's going to put the signature that it sees here. This is the currency symbol. So of course, this is where we've set the type of currency you collect, or when you're using currency fields, what type of symbol is it putting in front of it in your applicant's applications. Date format, the way that you format your dates, of course, here in the States, we do it one way, and then European countries tend to do it different. So you're able to set the format to an international versus US. The time zone, so this is where we set your time zone. So if your applicants, your time is off on your application forms, you're noticing maybe it's picking up the Eastern time and you're in Central time zone, then you might want to come here and just make sure that it does have the Central time zone or whatever time zone you fall within. And then that's what determines that time zone, the turning off and the turning on. When you set emails to be sent at a specific time, that's the time zone that it's using using to send all of that data. Over here, we have the site theme settings. So this is where you get that color scheme. So like this blue here, this black here. So if I click here, this is just an example page. So don't come here and say, oh, that's not what my application says. This is just a design version of what it would look like, what it looks like currently on your site. So you can get an idea as you're changing your theme, how it's going to look. So here, this select header type, I have a full white. So this is talking about this header right here, or I have a default, which is what I've got created here. Down here, this kind of gives you an idea of when you're looking at reports, how that report is displaying what it looks like, how it looks like. These icons, so when an applicant is completing their application form, these are the icons they see on their dashboard, so you can kind of see what's the color scheme, how are they viewing that. And then down here is where you would make your adjustments. So right now you can see these are my 3 theme colors. I can use the hex values if you have those from your marketing team. If they have your color scheme and they have those hex values, you can go ahead and type those in here and it'll pick those up. And so here, of course, with the site theme, we have this color scheme. So here, this color scheme is telling me this is the color scheme of my icons, this is my color scheme that I'm seeing off here to the left. And then here, the text color, this is setting the text color that my applicants are seeing. And then my hover button, so when I hover over, you can see it's changing the color on that. And so those are the different settings that you can go ahead and change. And so as you make these changes, it will start showing these changes here. And then when you're done, you do want to go ahead and make sure to save any changes you make so that it does keep the data on your site. So I'm going to go back here. Just going to click on the navigation up here to go back. So that's your site theme setup. The next one is the footer note. So this footer note is something that is a footer on your site. I'll show you here in a minute where it is. But it actually, if you're not sure what version you are, every time we update your version, this footer gets updated. So this is something you more than likely do not want to change, because if you do, you won't know what version of Community Force you're using. And so this tells you the version that you're on in that footer. And where do you see that? Well, if I can go here, let me open up another site page over here and bring it over. And on the first page before you log in, you'll see it down here. This is the footer, and it lets you know what version of Community Force you're using. So if you're not sure, you can always go to your page before you log in. This is my search page, but anywhere before you log in, you will see that footer located there. The admin help URL and the applicant help URL. So this is the URL of our help desk. When you get your site, it always defaults to our help desk. And so, of course, anybody using your site, any administrator that's using your site, when they hit this help button here for admins, because I am logged in as an admin, this help button is directing individuals to this URL. So of course, if you change that, that won't take them to our help desk. It will take them to wherever you've changed it to. This one is the same. Right now, you can just see they're the same. Applicant help, the reason we have 2 different ones is because sometimes our clients, instead of going to our help desk, they want to create their own how-to notes for their applicants. And then they can, if you have those notes and you put them up on your own website, then of course, if you know that URL, then you can just change it from ours to yours. And instead of going to our help desk where they might get lost, then you've created your own help desk, your own help notes, your own FAQs. They're on your website someplace on a URL. Then you can come here and change this URL to that specific location. Now we have a couple of settings here. Default page before log on. and default page after logon. So what these are the pages. So when we say default pages, so default page before logon. So here I am on my site. I've come to my site. I'm on my login page. So you can determine as soon as they come to your site, what page are they going to see? Are they going to see the login page? Are they going to see a search page, which is this page here? Or maybe you want them to see the application listing page where they can see all the applications available. So those 3 pages can be set depending on how you want them to see it when they come directly from the URL. So the search page they can see, or you can change it as soon as they come to that URL, they see the login, or they see that application list. Those 3 pages you can determine as soon as they come to your site, they click the link to the site, what page is it taking them to before they log in. You also have the same with once they log in, maybe they're coming in, maybe especially with integration, they're already coming in, they're already logged in. Where do you want them to go? Do you want them to go to see the application listing page? Do you want them to maybe see the search page so they can search for applications, especially if you have a lot and they're searching? They can search, and this is after they log in. So they're going to come to the site, they're going to log in, and then once they log in, they're going to see these specific areas. And then the My Application tab. So that's when they log in as them, as the user. They have a My Applications page that shows all the applications they've applied for, and then they can click on the various applications. And then the application list, of course, is if you're just having them log in and not seeing a listing of applications till they log in, then of course you might want them to see that application list page. So you can determine these 3 pages, which one you want them to see as soon as they log in. The logout URL, so there's 2 different logout URLs. There's a site-based logout URL, and then each application, when you build an application in the general information, there's a logout URL there also. So this logout URL is for all your applicants before they've selected an application. So maybe they've logged in, they're searching applications, they haven't chosen one yet, and then they log out. Where is it taking them? What location do they go to when they click that log out button if they haven't started an application yet? Now, of course, once they've started an application, they're in that, they selected that application, they're in that application and they log out, it's going to go to the general information, and whatever that logout URL is, that's the one that it will log them out to. So this is if there's no application whatsoever, the site needs to know, okay, where they're going to go. They're not in an application, so I don't know where to send them. So that's why there's the site one different from the general information. They can be the same, of course, but this is just because they're not in an application, the site doesn't know where to send them since they're not in that application form. The contact us. So the contact us is for the individuals before they've logged in. They aren't logged in yet, and so when they come to the site, maybe they're having difficulty logging in. Maybe they can't remember their password, or they're not sure how to get logged in, or they're not sure how to do something and they need to contact you. So here at the bottom, before they're logged in, there's a contact down here in the right-hand corner. This contact button right here is what is looking at what you have here for the contact us. So if they can't get into the site, they're an applicant, they need to contact somebody, this is that contact information. So that contact us, anywhere you see that on your site, that's where it's going to take that individual to. It's going to open up their email so that they can email that individual. Then we have here pre-qualification questions display. So what this is if you're using pre-qualification questions, so those are those questions that you're pre-qualifying someone before they even get into your application form. So you can set this so that once an applicant hits the apply button, they can apply before login or after login. They can get those questions. So if you say after login, then what they have to do is they have to click the apply to the application. And if they're logged in before that application started, they will see those pre-qualification questions. However, if you say before login, they don't even have to log in. So if they're searching applications and you have it to where they can see the applications, they can click apply. And when they click apply before they've even logged into the site, then those pre-qualification questions can appear at that stage. So you can determine how you want those pre-qualifications to appear. Now you can see it's normally defaulted, so after they log in, they've clicked apply, they log in, then they get those pre-qualification questions to complete. This one here, restrict domains to register with. So that is used for integration. So when an individual is creating an account on the site and you're using integration, this is saying that they have to have that domain. They have to be coming from that domain in order to register a user account on the system. They have to be coming. They can't just go into the URL, come to Community Force. They have to go through your domain, and then from your domain, they can register on the Community Force site. And so this is the domain name that you would put if you're using integration. This request section title. So the request section title are request sections. So if you're using request sections in your application form, what do I mean by request sections? So in your application, the applicants are applying and you have specific questions that are called request sections that you're building in your application build. So when you build it, there's that little toggle when you build a section that says this is a request section. And this is the one where the applicant sees an area, they click on it, they don't see the sections, but they can invite someone to apply or complete those sections for them. Not collaboration, don't get this confused with collaboration. This is where the applicant doesn't see the sections. They don't have applicant doesn't have access to these sections. All they're doing is they're clicking that request section and they're inviting individuals saying, hey, can you please fill out this section for me? They're just providing a name and an email. That's it. They can't see the section. And then it sends an email to that individual with a link, and the individual that's been invited can see the section. So those are usually like letters of recommendation. Sometimes grant users will use them to gather signatures from the executive directors. The applicant doesn't need to sign, or maybe it's for fiscal sponsors. The applicant isn't completing it, but they need to have somebody else do it on their behalf. They don't need to see it though. So those sections, instead of being called request section, since a lot of times that doesn't have a meaning to your applicants, you can change the title, this where it says request section, or this button here that says request section. You can change the title in this site setting so that it has more meaning to your applicants. Now this is a site setting, so that means it's universal. You can't have one application say one thing, another application say another thing, another request section say one thing, another request section say another. This is what that label is going to say. Now don't get that confused. This is this button here, not this label up here, because this is the section name. This is the label that our system has called the specific functionality. So that's just a universal name our system uses to call that functionality, but maybe you want it to be something else. You do have the ability to change that title here. Now these next two functionalities, a lot of you will not have this on your site. Of course, I have a universal site with a lot of things activated that you won't have activated on your site. But Stripe is a third-party payment processing program. And so if you're allowing applicants or you're requiring applicants to have payments, so I've enabled down here, you can see here, I have enable application payments. So there's a fee required that the applicant needs to pay. And so what they do is this is activated. I can collect a fee on that application form. and then I can set the connection keys to my third-party software. So what, there could be a question built, there's a special question type that collects payments, and what it does, it goes out to that third-party software, it looks at the key data, goes to your third party, the applicant makes their payment, and then they come back to the site, and then you can see that they've made that payment for that application process. So that's what this is. This, if you're using that, this is where those API and the published key are located for those specific, if you're using that third party, so that that can connect. And that is something that we at Community Force will, if you're using payments for your application form, we will assist you in setting that up. Now the next items here, show apply button before login. So what that is when you have your listing of applications and applicants are looking at them, that show apply button. So if I go in here, let me find one that's active. If I go in here and click view details, I don't know if this one's, that one's past deadline, sorry. Find one that's here, this one. See this apply button here? So this can appear before login. So I'm not logged in yet on the site. So this apply button is present. Now I can turn that off so that they can see the applications, but then they have to log in first and then go in, and then that apply button will be there. Otherwise, if that's turned, says to show it, then they can just click the apply button and then log in from this page. Enable global search for applicants. That's this little thing right here. This is so if you have multiple applications, applicant contacts you, you want to be able to search for that applicant, you can do so using this global search, and that allows you to find all the applications that they have present. So that can be turned off or on if you don't want that. Enable application publishing. So this can be turned off. The only purpose of application publishing, so when you're in general information on your application build, it says publish yes or no, that is only an internal publish. That has nothing to do with publishing it to your applicants. An application is published to your applicants in the fund setting. You have to publish that fund setup. The application is internal. If you have multiple users and you only want yourself to be the one able to see that at the moment, then you can put your you can activate this application publishing to yes or no. If you have just like one or two applications, you don't want that in your general information screen because it serves no purpose for your organization. You're the only admin going in. You don't have multiple admins where you don't need them to have access to things just yet. Then you can go ahead and go to the site setting and put this to no, and it will no longer show on your general information screen asking you to activate that specific field. Disable section locks for admin. So what this is, I have it set to yes, that's the default. And what this is saying is when an applicant submits their application, right now my admins can go in and make adjustments to the application form, and that's all admins, even department admins. If I put this to no, I can't go in and make any adjustments to my applicant's application form. I can't do my staff sections. I can't do anything within this area if an applicant has submitted their application form. So if you don't want admins going in and making changes on applicants' applications, then you need to set this to no. Show view all funding. Again, that's that screen that we were looking at on the site here. When applicants are looking, oh, it kicked me out. Let's go back in here. So view all funding, it's this button here. Sometimes our clients don't want applicants to be able to get to all of them. Maybe they just have one or two specific they want them to have. So you can turn this button off if you wish. That can be turned off. That's the show view. Enable search by keyword. So what that does is activate the ability to, so you have search by keyword. I might as well cover all three of these because they're all on the same page. Search by eligibility criteria and search by manage sponsoring organization. So this is the search screen. On this search screen, you have three areas. Depending on what you want your applicants to search by, you can turn these off or on. So that search by keyword, yes or no, displays this portion. Search by funding eligibility, yes or no, opens this section. Search by sponsoring organization, if you have multiple sponsoring organizations and they need to know, so a lot of times universities will use this for departments. They'll create sponsoring organizations for different departments, and then each department has its own group of scholarships and funds. So when applicants are searching, they can search by a specific department, and that can be what a sponsor, search by sponsoring organizations. It's same if you have multiple organizations that you're maintaining the site for, and they all have applications on this one site, and it's different organizations, you can link them through the sponsoring organization, and then applicants can search accordingly. So that's what that setting does. Those three settings is turn those areas on that search screen on or off: keyword, eligibility, and sponsoring organization. The interest cart is for usually our universities where they have a lot of applications. Maybe a lot of them aren't live yet, but they're means where an applicant can see all of your available applications. They can see, okay, this one's not available yet, but it's going to be coming live on such and such date. I'm going to put that in my interest cart so that I know, okay, I want to apply for that when the time comes. So you can activate that. And then, of course, when they go to apply, if I go here and let's see, I think I can view details. And when they go to apply, if it's not available, it'll say add to interest cart when that's activated. And then there's a message which we'll talk about here in, later on in our session today, where that message is that they can get as well. And then they have a tab too on their screen that's their interest cart screen for available applications. Enable import responses from existing applications. So if you have from year to year applicants importing, especially grant users, they're importing data from a previous application form, this is what allows that to happen. If you turn it off, an applicant can't import from one application to another. They can only do the one application, they can't import. If you're a scholarship site and you have multiple different applications and applicants applying, second application they're applying to, a lot of the data is the same, the URLs are the same, they want to import, that is what needs to be activated. Enable formatting of Excel. So anytime you export data from one of our reports into an Excel file, it does left justify. However, if you want the field to be right justified, then you can activate this, and that will format it so that it's right justified for any numeric columns that come over. Enable application payments. We just talked about that. That's if you're allowing an application to have a fee, then you need this activated. The enable terms and conditions. So this is one of those questions we get a lot of times. In order to use your site, before someone can create a login, you want them to have terms and conditions. So terms and conditions, if that's activated, when someone comes to your site and goes to create a new account, here at the bottom, you'll see here a terms and conditions, if that's turned on. Then they click this, and then whatever the terms and conditions message is, which I'll show you that, we'll show you that later of how to get where to put that, that will then appear to them. So this can be turned off or this can be turned on according to whether or not you have that terms and conditions. And okay, so this one, and like I said, there's a lot of these, so we'll be getting through these. Okay, so this one, display review screen before application submission. So what that is when an applicant applies, they complete the application 100% and they click submit, they get that review screen. So you can turn that off or on. That review screen is where they review the application that has the little checkbox that they have to check. Then if you want that on, then you put this to yes. If you don't want them to review it, you can put that to no. Enable automatic application creation through application invitation. So if you're using the application invitation, there's two toggles that are important to make sure you have set correctly. The first one is this one, and then the other one is disable automatic notification for application invitation. So if you're using the application invitation process on our system, where you're inviting someone to an application, it's a private application you're inviting them to apply to. This enable automatic application creation, what it does is as soon as you invite someone, it sends an invitation to somebody. And when it sends the invitation, you can determine if you want it as soon as they're invited for the site to automatically start the application for them, or it just sends an invitation and gives them a link, and then they click the link. They can go through that link. They have to click the link through the email that sends to them. If they don't get that email and they don't click that link, they won't have access because it's a specific link designed to that invitation process. They click the link and then they apply. If you want them to not have to click the link and apply, you want the application to automatically start for them, then you can enable this. They get the invite as soon as you notify them and the application started. And then this, of course, makes the determination, do you want them to get a physical invite or do you want to go outside of our system and invite them to the functionality? So of course, if you aren't giving them the automatic creation, then you definitely would want this to be yes, because that's the only way, this email is the only way they're going to get the link that they need to access it so that they can click the apply. So those two go hand in hand together for that functionality. The send an email to the application contact, so that's the admin. In the general information screen that you've identified as the key contact for that application process. So whenever an applicant submits, every time they submit, this is that toggle that turns on the ability. So I'm an applicant, I apply, I click submit. You as the admin are going to get that email if you're listed as the application contact on that application form. That's the toggle that turns that off and on. This is the one for post-accepted sections. So if you're using post-accepted sections, you've got that submit button in your post-accepted sections, because you should always have that submit button in post-acceptance sections. They click the submit button, the same thing happens. It sends an email to the application contact. That's what turns that off and on. Enable dual roles. This is for review functionality. So predominantly, this is for our grant users. So if you're a grant user, this is a recommended setting to turn on. If you have lots of organizations, I would say only if you have a lot, that members of those organizations are also reviewing, but they also need to be able to apply. Enable dual role allows applicants, and I'm going to stress this, they have to have an applicant profile. And then if you activate enable dual roles, applicants will show up when you're making your assignments. The names of all your applicants will show up with your reviewer names. And so if they already have an applicant account and you've activated this, they don't need to have an applicant and a reviewer. However, if they're a reviewer already and they're not an applicant, it doesn't work that direction. It's only gives you the ability to, when you're selecting reviewers, that you can select someone who's an applicant, and then that applicant can also be put on a review committee. So that's why grant users, because you have granting organizations, you have executive directors that might be applying for grants for their own organization, but then they're also on review committees. So that's that functionality. But that is something that as soon as you activate it, when you start doing your reviews and assigning, you're going to see all your applicants and all your reviewers and all your admin profiles, and the list can get very long. So that's why it's mainly just for grant users, because you don't have as many users as scholarship sites would. So if that's something you want to know more about, then please reach out to our team and we can talk about your processes and see if that's something that would need to be activated. Enable program name is also something that's mainly used by our grant users. So that toggle is what turns on that program name functionality. So of course, grant sites use it mainly because they want to know who's the organization and what's the name of the program that they're applying for. So activating that toggle activates this column. It also activates the question type to build program name, so that when the applicant completes that field, it populates this column. You can see it, the applicant can see it also. Let's see, hide search tab from applicants. So again, that's on the search screen when applicants are coming into the site. So you can turn off the search for funding opportunities. You can turn that off so that they can't even get to this search page. We talked about this one that worked up here with this one, the invitation, the enable application indicators. That's another special functionality that is something, if you're interested in knowing more about, you can talk to our team. But what that does, that's for integration, mainly with Banner, we use it. And maybe you have an application, you have one to one applications, not one to many. You have multiple one-to-one applications, and each one has its own criteria. And applicants are coming in from a third party, coming in from that site to Community Force, and you can set indicators. This activates a functionality on the site. On each application, you can set criteria indicators. So what it does is it reads the data from your site coming into our site. The fields are linked. Our field, like a name field, and their name field is linked. Criteria fields, like their majors, they're linked with our fields when we build the application. And then what it does is, based on what your site tells our site, those indicators will then determine, okay, you're eligible for this application, you're eligible for this one, and it'll automatically start the applicants on those applications. That's that functionality. And this toggle turns that on. But of course, not only do you do that, but you have to set the criteria for every single application. It's not just a one or nothing. You set it for every application, and then it does require our team to intervene to make that final link from our field to your field so that the data flows through with that integration. So that does require setup by Community Force in order to use that functionality. You can't just turn it on. There's still some setup that was required by us as well to make it fully functional. Allow applicants to delete accounts. So this is a regulation that you have to have on all sites. If you require that regulation, this allows applicants to delete all of their data completely from your site. So if this says yes, an applicant can come in and delete everything, their profile, all of their applications. It's as soon as when they delete it, it deletes everything. It gives them the capability to clean the slate so no data of theirs is out on your site. That allows them to do that. And if you have that regulation, then where applicants have the right to delete any data on a site, then this is activated as yes. And so we have that regulation. And so we do have that activated as yes. They have the option to do that. Update date of birth. So if this is a scholarship site, you have this. Grant sites don't have date of birth because it's organizations, and organizations won't have a date of birth. But of course, in the login screen, when someone's logging in, login, create new account, there's that date of birth here. So if you want applicants to be able to update their date of birth, then you activate this. So not when they create their login, they put in that date of birth. Then once they log in, they realize, oh, I put the wrong date of birth in. They can go to their profile update and update that date of birth because this is activated. Allow application edit after it has been published. So what this is this is internal as an admin, not an applicant. So you've built your application form and now you've gone live. Once you go live, you don't want to make changes to your application form. Once you've published that fund and you've gone live, that's what we mean by gone live. You've published the fund, so everyone has access to get into it and apply. This allow application edit after you've published, after you've published it. If it says no, you can't make any changes to your application form. So if you're creating an application, you're brand new to the community force and you're not able to, you've published it and you're not really live per se because you're still in testing and you're realizing, you know what, I went live and now I can't make any changes to my application. It's because this is set to no. The Excel extension that just allows you, when you export, what extension do you want it to have? Enable fund criteria automation. This is going to be defaulted in all of our new new clients. So this is what creates that automation of the fund criteria. You have that question. When you're building the question, it says what if this is for fund criteria? Yes. If it is, what's the fund it's tied to? You select that fund. Then when you go to the manage build criteria, that question's already in the fund setup and you just need to set the parameters. That's what turns that on. Nominations received compulsory for submission. So that's those request sections we talked about earlier. So right now, if it says yes, then that means the applicant is required to do a request section before they submit. They have to request them and they have to be 100% received. If it's no, then they can request, the applicant can submit their application, but the nominee doesn't have to have their section done. So you can see it's defaulted to no, because that's what the majority of our clients, they want applicants to be able to complete their application, request the section, but still submit. And then that's where it goes to that request pending status. However, if you don't want that, you want to make them request and be 100% received before they submit, then this is the toggle you need to turn on. And then two-factor authentication is just for login. When an applicant logs in, we do have the ability for two-factor authentication, which then allows an applicant, what they do is they log in. Then once they log in, they get an email sent to them with a code, and then they have to come back to our site and enter that code. And so that's what activates that functionality. So now I'm going to stop there, and I see a few questions did come in, so I'm going to let Maureen address those. Maureen, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Christine. Okay, we do have a few questions. This one says, okay. We do not use the program name, as Christine has explained, as a program, enable program name. We call it project name. They're using it specifically for people. Let's just say the example is, a parent is applying on behalf of his 3 kids and the children's name is in the program name. Can I change that to, the student name or the applicant name, actual applicant name? Unfortunately, we cannot change the label in the reports, but within the question, you can definitely change the title of the question. So when you pull reports from ad hoc reports, you can definitely make that change. It will be just as per the question report Excel column name. But on your manage application screen and the awarding screen, the program name will still be called as program name. Okay. Can I run a report on pre-qualification questions? Like how many applicants have come in? Have they, what answers they were giving, just in order to understand the trends of your applicants or your prospective applicants? Unfortunately, no. Pre-qualification questions are not tied to any reporting at the back end, so you are not able to pull the reports related to pre-qualification questions. There's another question that says, can I set up multiple time zones and assign them to multiple applications in the system. Because you might have, as Christine has mentioned, the sponsoring organizations could be different in the system, such as departments. So if you want to have one sponsoring organization in one time zone and associated with one application, while the second sponsoring organization is associated with another application that's in another time zone, because they're probably in different PST, CST, and EST, no, that is not possible currently. The time zone that Christine showed you on the general setting screen or the site setting screen is universal. That's related to the site. So it's not based or associated with individual applications. Okay, let me just check once last, Christine. I think I covered all. Jia, I'm looking into your site. I'll get back to you. Just a second. Okay. Back to you, Christine. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, very good. And thank you, Marie. So we just have a few more to go. The rest of this will probably go pretty quick. So referral settings. So what referral settings are it's a special functionality. You might not have it turned on, but that referral settings is where you turn it on. And what that allows is a referral process form. So let's see, how do I get out of here? On a referral process, what it does is creates on every application form. So if I go here to my view funding, when I activate a referral, it's going to activate this button here. And then that allows for someone to select an application. So maybe a guidance counselor or someone wants to recommend an applicant for a specific application. They can do so using this referral functionality. And so they can enter the applicant's name and then who they are, and then hit save. And then what it does is it then activates the referral for that specific application. And so to turn that on or off, here in site settings under referral settings, if it says enabled yes, that's what turns the functionality on, where you see that form at the top of the page. Enable agency screen. So once you turn this on, you're going to notice on every application form there's going to be this, but I'm just going to go to the global one. So what it does is each application will then have a toggle menu item that will show, that will say application referral, manage application referrals, and it'll look something like this page here. And it'll be per application. This one's for all of my applications. So as an admin, I don't have to go in each individual application. I can see them all. But the agency, so maybe I don't want to manage, I can go in and change the agency data if that's activated. That's all it does, is makes it for me to be able to make a universal name for all those agencies in this process, those guidance counselors that are applying to that specific, applying those specific applicants. Eric. And then you're also going to notice an approval process here where I can go in as an admin and approve. I can see, okay, they've recommended or referred this specific applicant. Do I want to approve them or decline? I can go in and I can decline. No, I don't want to approve them. I can decline it, or what I can do is I can approve it, or I can approve and have it send an email to that applicant. And then what it does is then allows the applicant to apply to that application form. So if I want to activate that, of course, that's in the site setting under the referral settings here. And then the agency screen, and then you can also have it to where no, it doesn't have to go through an approval process. You can turn that off. And so as soon as a guidance counselor recommends an applicant, then it automatically sends an email to the applicant letting them know that they can apply to that application. Okay, so that's that functionality. The next one is the reviewer screen settings. So this is the review process. Your reviewers, when they log in, there's certain settings you can set so that control how the reviewers see certain areas of their review process. So when I say certain areas, what are those settings that they can adjust? So here in reviewer screen here, This automatic assignment of applications is where you can turn this, there's a special functionality that is tied to ad hoc reports where you can, based on reports that you've built, you can say, assign all these applicants to this group of people. It's a group assignment to, by looking at ad hoc reports. So we will be touching on that at another training, but just so you know, this is the toggle that would turn that functionality on. Then we have here, so when a reviewer comes to your site, you have a decision you can make in the scorecard. So the majority, the default is an reviewer comes in, they see the applicant that they're to review, they click on that applicant, they see their scorecard to the left, to the right, they see the actual application form there where they can scroll through it. Some of our users don't want them to have the application form to the right. They want it to be a link. And so then what happens is the reviewer comes in, does their scorecard. If they want to look at the application, there's a link. They click the link and it's just like a preview link and it'll open up a separate tab and then they can toggle back and forth between the scorecard and that tab to see the application. The enable submit functionality for reviewers. So that's that submittal functionality where they have to submit. Once they submit, they can't go in and make changes. So that turns that functionality off and on. If you don't want them to have to submit, then you don't have to have this on. You can turn it off. The enable document preview, that is when a reviewer is looking at an application, there's documents tied, you know, within that preview, there is blue, it's highlighted where they click on that link will then open up a document. If you put this to yes, which we don't recommend unless that's something you absolutely want, it does pull a lot of resource. If you put this to yes, and it will slow your system down, if you put this to yes, they won't have the link anymore. They will have the actual, they will see the document physically. They don't have to click the link and then see the document in another tab. It's right there within that applications preview. But like I said, that does pull a lot of resources, so it's not something, if it's not something in absolute that you have to have, I wouldn't recommend activating it. So that's the reviewer screen settings. Also in the reviewer screen settings, there is an item called push scores, which is this here. And what that's for is you have a one-to-many application process maybe, or you have a one-to-one with multiple applications live at the same time. Applicants are applying. You have committee members, same applicants, they're going to be reviewing. So maybe an applicant applied to application 1 in a one-to-one. And then there's another application that same applicant applied to because it's a different scholarship. And then there's another one that they applied to that's a different scholarship. Committee members, of course, can sit on different committees. So if you have the exact same scorecards, it's just they're in different applications. That committee member could get that applicant again. It's the same scorecard, so they should be scoring them the same. We have a push functionality. You can use it on a one-to-one. And you can also use it on a one-to-many when you have different task cards for each individual scholarship in a one-to-many. And a reviewer is on multiple committees. They're in Scholarship 1 and Scholarship 3 committee, and Applicant 1 is in Scholarship 1 and Scholarship 3. That committee member is going to review them both times. You don't want them to have to redo all their scores, so there's a push functionality that's based on the XML and the scorecards. That's why we usually do copy, because of that function reason. And so what they can do is they can either have it turned off or they can't push any scores, or they can push scores only within the same application, so like a one-to-many, or they can push scores across all applications. That's with multiple one-to-ones with same committees within the same academic year. So it's all within the same academic year. So all those applications that applicants are applying, and it's the same academic year. If they got applicant 1 in that application, applicant, and so forth. So those are the 3 different options you can have for that. Now the next one, grant fellowship settings. So this is grant fellowship / most of you are going to call it scholarships, not fellowships. But these are the settings that enable you to set up specific settings for your scholarship, for building of your funds. When you build your funds, what are some things that you want to see in that fund setup? So when we say fund, that's whatever you call your grant, whatever you call fellowships. What do you call it a grant? Do you call it fellowships? Do you call it account fund? Do you call it ledger fund? Do you call it scholarships? That's what this setting is. That's what fund setup when we talk about funds. That's the manage applications fund screen. So these settings drive what you see on that screen. So if you have certain fields you want to activate, you can see these are fields that can be activated, different types. We have drop downs, text boxes, numeric. You want to capture additional data other than what we have available, then this is where you would activate those fields. The label. So like I said, some of you call them grants, some of you call them fellowships, some of them you call them ledger accounts, some of you call them scholarships. This label is what you can use to put what you call it, what you call the fund. What is the fund? The fund is the monetary pool of money that's going to be awarded to the applicants applying to a specific process. What do you call that on your specific organization site? So just to kind of show you what it changes, here, if I scroll to the fund label, I'm in my manage application funds. Here, it changes that header there, changes the header on this column and this column. So whatever you call it, that's what it's going to change it to. So it's not confusing to your team. So that is the fund label. The fund contact. So in each fund setup, there's a area that says fund contact. You can turn that off or on if you have multiple contacts, multiple individuals, and you want to create different contacts within your organization per fund, then you can activate this and enter a contact for each one. If you don't care who the contact is, then you can turn that off. Donor, this is what turns on the donor fields to capture donor information. So if you're doing thank you letters, you need to capture that donor information. Who's the donor? What's their email? That's what turns that box on. And then this is a special functionality we'll talk about in one of our next trainings coming up when we're talking about creating users. This allows you to create you can create multiple role types, and then those role types can then be tied to specific funds. So then whoever has that role type, only the individuals with that role type can access those funds. So that's some of the settings based on your fund setup. External system settings. So external system settings are external data sources. Again, you have integration. The Community Force site has to communicate with your external site. So these are the settings that are set. Your tech team, our tech team get together, talk about what settings need to be set. These are where, if your tech team needs to know, hey, we need to make an adjustment, where do we make that change? Of course, you probably want Community Force to intervene, but this allows you to know where those settings are, and you can tell your tech team how to access those. So just so you can see what some of those are, external system settings. So here you can see, what's the name of the external system? What's your ID? If you activate the ID name, so that if you activate that, then it'll show on all of your reports, all of your screens, everywhere, that external ID, so that you know who's coming from your site and who's not coming from your site. You can activate all that through this. Same with the active LDAP setting, same thing. It's Internet Protocol that helps define the language used by your client programs to talk to servers. On your client side, a client may be an email program, print browser, address book. So those are the specific settings that your tech team also will need to know. And then Community Force, of course, sets those up in communication with your team. Some of the settings needed to make that communication happen between the two sites. And then this is the LDAP, web server, username, password, and so forth. Okay. Then we have the next area of the manage award settings. So just like we had this fund setup, we had specific fields you can activate. Same with award setting. There's specific fields you can activate that control how you do your awarding. So some of those key toggles are here. Manage award settings. So here, before I talk about this, let's talk about these. These are when you're awarding and you get that screen that pops up where you enter the initial amount and the final amount. Maybe you want to have additional fields you want to capture. These fields can be included in ad hoc reports. If you activate them, they can be put into your ad hoc report. You can see you have all these text boxes. You have some date boxes, essays, a couple of drop downs. You can activate fields, and then those appear when you click the award. When you click the award, then you have to populate these fields as needed. So, and then when you populate them, they can be put into an ad hoc report. Now this is for Manage Awards multiple funds. It doesn't affect Manage Awards one fund. This is if you're doing Manage Awards multiple funds. So the default with the Manage Awards multiple funds is when you go in to your Manage Awards multiple funds, so you can kind of see on you have a scholarship view. You go in, you see all the scholarships, you see the applicants that have been matched, you see what you've got remaining, what you've awarded by scholarship. However, you can change that toggle to an applicant view. When you change it to an applicant view, it changes it from a scholarship to where now you're seeing a list of all of your applicants. You're going to click the multiple funds. You're going to see applicants instead of funds. And then over here, you can click this number. You can see, okay, this applicant's matched to 8 awards. What are they? Click it, and you see the 8 awards they're matched to. So that's what that toggle does, is it switches it from scholarship specific to applicant specific. And then the next one we want to talk about is instruction settings. What are the instruction settings? Well, those are the key instruction areas on our site, site-specific instruction areas like the search page, the login page, that registration page at the top, those terms and conditions we talked about, interest cart. Those pages all have where you can add instructions to the top of them. So where you do that is here in site settings under instructions. Under instructions, you see the text boxes that open up. This is those login instructions. Welcome to your site. Here's the information. Log in. What do you do if you forgot password? That's where that message is at the top of that page. When they click create new account, that create new account page at the top, you can put registration instructions at the top of that page on what they need to populate in those fields, why they need to provide that data to you if you want. You can provide instructions at the top of that page. If you activated terms and conditions, what are the terms and conditions? They see that little blue terms and conditions. They want to accept it. They need to, if they want to see what those terms and conditions are, they click it. Whatever message you put in this essay box here is the message that they will see that they're going to be consenting to. If you activated interest cart, you want to provide a message to your applicants for their interest cart header, then you can put a message here. And then this message here is for when you have applicants applying directly to Community Force, as well as applicants. So they're creating an account on Community Force, applying to applications that you have available for non-organization applicants, or you have applications that are available to only applicants coming from your third party. So in those scenarios, sometimes you have applicants that don't need to be a part of your organization, that you have some funding available, that they don't have to be a member of your organization, but at the same time, you have applicants who are members of your organization that can only apply to specific scholarships if they're members. So you can differentiate by using that organization code that we used up here. Remember I talked about this organization code. One will say non, and then the other one will just be CF. CF means they're coming from your organization and applying. If it says non-CF, that user account says non-CF, then they can only apply to applications and funds that are available to non-members of your organization. when you activate that functionality, when you create the fund, there's a toggle in the fund that says non-CF and CF, or whatever the letters of your organization would be. Of course, not mine CF, but it will say non. And if you toggle that on, that means anybody who's not a member of your organization is eligible to apply. So that's what this message is here. If you're using that functionality and you have that integration, if they're not eligible, this is the message that you can present to them to let them know they're not eligible because they're not, and then give them the message as to why. And then the final instructions we want to talk about, actually there's two more, but advertisement. So if you're using Google Analytics and you want to know where you put your meta words or your meta descriptions or your Google Analytics scripts, that is going to be here in the advertising and marketing tab down at the very bottom of the site settings. There's your script, there's where you put those keywords, and there's where you put the description, so that if you're using those analytics and you want to know who's coming to your site and how to tag those individuals to know, so you can keep track of that, then this is where you would enter that data. And then the final one, if you're using our translation where it translates the language on our site, some of you on our session today may have that. So here is the translation settings. If you have that activated, you will have this. If you don't have it activated, then you won't have this. But this translation setting is where you're going to set what the language is. So what's the language that you have available? Because remember, if you have this functionality, you do have to purchase a third-party language translation program. What's the language that you want to translate this in? And then what's the area on our site? So you can see the different areas that you can change the language. And so what areas do you need to change the language, and what's the language it needs to go to? So that is it. That all the site settings, like I said, this was a lot to cover. And so we are through everything. So I will see if there's any questions. And Maureen, do you want to answer and address any of them that have come in? And then if not,
Yes,
then
Christine.
okay.
Yeah, very quickly, there's a question that says, this is kind of important. So the question is, we are going through a rebranding. Our organization is going through a rebranding. Can I change the title of, can I go into site settings and change the title of my website in order to incorporate that? Yes. But apart from that, this is important if in case your, organization also decides to go through a rebranding, there are three things that you'll have to remember. Number one is the site title, which you have complete access to making that change. Yeah, not sure why this isn't moving. So title, right, as Christine has mentioned, at the beginning of the session, title needs to be changed. There we go. Yes, under organizations, general settings. You can change the title. Number two for you would be, change the logo. That would be under organization. Make sure that you have the updated logo. You have full access to changing and uploading a new logo. Lastly, there might be, the site URL change. The site URL change needs to be done from the back end, and they will have a cost associated with it. Reach out to us when you go through this process, and we'll make sure that we, cover all areas, or you can cover two and reach out to us for the site URL, and we'll let you know with the, update you with the cost associated with the site URL. There's one other question that is related to the donors. Can I associate an existing user from the system that is under setup users? An account is being set up. Can I associate that user with the donor, that is the fund donor? No, your fund donors accounts need not be created in the system. You cannot associate these users with the fund. So they have to be separate entities altogether. Okay, I think I'll stop, Christine. 20 more minutes we've taken. So back to you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
And thank you, Maureen. And then one last thing I do want to stress, anytime you make a change on these site settings, it's always important to save, because if you make a change and then you back out, it's not going to save any of those changes. So you have to go in, make your change, always make sure to click the save button at the bottom of the page. It's very important.
I would just like to add one more thing before everyone leaves. If you are not able to see some of the settings, which I have noticed, some of our clients mentioning, attendees mentioning that they do not have some settings on the site, it's mainly the main purpose has been, there have been repercussions. So we have kept the access limited to Community Force staff only, or the backend, that is the technical team. So you can only get those settings enabled from the backend. In this case, if you cannot locate the same that you saw on Christine's side because she's logged in as a super admin, if you can't locate this on your side, please reach out to us. We'll get it enabled for you from the backend. That's it, Christine. I'm done.
Okay, very good. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today, and again, for staying on, because like I said, there is a lot to cover, and if we did go a little bit fast, this is going to be recorded, of course, so you will be able to get a recording, and so from that recording you can slow down and be able to see some of the areas that we went to. And of course, as always, we have the resources available that are connected to that handout, so make sure you download that handout so that you can click the click here's and be accessed directly to our knowledge bases that cover these specific areas. Also, if there's something that you saw turned on my site that I discussed that you don't have on your site that you want, then always feel free to reach out through a support ticket on Zendesk. And through that support ticket, you can request a meeting with our process review specialists, and then those process review specialists can contact you and go over your processes and determine if that's something that would be of benefit to you to have activated, and then go over your functionality, your processes, and then how to turn all that on. Okay, and so again, we thank all of you for your time, and we'll go ahead and close the session for today. And thank you, Maureen, for all your assistance as well. Our next webinar we're going to be doing is part 2. And so with part 2, we will be having that session on October 17th. We've got some vacations coming up here. So we'll be holding the next one on October 17th. So be on the lookout for that invite to be coming towards the 1st of October, and make sure that you attend that one as well. So thank you, everyone, and we'll close the session for today. Have a good week. Take care. Bye.